I am so sick of SEO people telling me it depends. Help me understand, what is the customer supposed to expect from marketing today? Like, how do we define success?
SEO is a 10,000 piece puzzle. Again, the company that puts the most pieces together, or the agency that puts the most together for you, wins a spot on page one. Ranking in AI is a 100,000 piece puzzle, and it doesn't have a picture. So that's where we're at right now, is trying to put that puzzle together for you.
Can we find shortcuts? Let's say you search for, again, whatever, AC repair near me. Is the first 3 results not even your competitor? Is it Reddit and YouTube and whatever else? Well, let's make you rank there.
I think from our perspective is education as being like a primary building block with the new client. I think sometimes it makes it hard not to go back a little bit too far, but we, as an industry, I think kind of created a must where we give all these KPIs and all these areas and metrics that they should be focusing on, like impressions and traffic.
Welcome to SEO On-Air. I'm your host, Koa Kauwe. This is brought to you by Stan Ventures. Today, I have 3 guests on with us who originally came on to discuss what it takes to get ranked in position 1 with me. We're excited to explore that because Google's had some announcements that I think have really shaken up what position 1 means. And I'm excited to have the conversation with the 3 of you to learn more about what that means to you. And to give our listeners a chance to understand who's joining us, I'm going to give you each a chance to introduce yourselves and just tell us a little bit about your credibility and your background. Starting with Cliff, and I always say this because you're in the top left of my screen. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. My name is Cliff Tillery. I have been an SEO nerd for 17 years. I started SEO at this agency, Make It Loud, outside of Atlanta, Georgia. We're a full-service digital marketing agency, web design, SEO, paid ads, social media, advertising.
Well, Cliff, I'm excited that you're here with us. Thanks for joining us. Dmitrii, please go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. I hope my sound is good enough. My name is Dmitrii Kustov. I'm the owner and currently in the role of every role, pretty much, at Regex SEO. We are rebranding to RGX because nobody could ever pronounce Regex SEO. And yeah, we are also a full marketing agency. We specialize in working with home services industry, your HVAC guys, plumbers, electricians, and so on. And our goal is to take them from point A to point B in terms of business growth, not just some kind of artificial, superficial results that just look good on paper.
That would have been great for the ethics podcast we recorded recently, actually, where it was all about results and less about KPIs that were not necessarily performance-based. So excited to have you on with us, Dmitrii. Thanks for joining us. And Blake, last but not least, please.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. I'm Blake Corrington, the Director of SEO and Generative Search at Brado Digital Marketing. So Brado Digital Marketing specializes in healthcare marketing. So we didn't think it was hard enough to do generative search in like the last 2 years. We decided to do the most your money, your life, insane industry plus HIPAA compliance. So attribution, if we didn't get enough of changes in attribution from AI, we're adding that on as well. But it's been a really good experience. We feel like generative search is excellent for healthcare systems. There are big challenges that they're facing. And we're a full service agency as well. I just lead the kind of SEO and generative search arm of it.
Yeah, your money, your life will be fun. We may ask a few questions on that to understand just how that's changing with the other changes we're seeing recently. So the 3 of you, thank you for joining us. I'm going to open up with a question that pretty much summarizes the entire podcast if you answer it too detailed. So we'll ask for a quick summary, but we initially scheduled this for the discussion of what it really takes to be ranked in position 1. And that position, as of sometime this summer, I think, I don't know the exact timing of it, is potentially gone from most Google searches from the blue links perspective, maybe not the local maps perspective, which probably affects all of us as well. But what is position 1 today? So before we talk about what it takes to get there, let's define what it is today. Can you help me understand it?
It's gone from essential to nice, but is it driving all the revenue that we like? No, God, no.
Yeah, I think when we used to talk about position 1, I started in SEO a little bit probably basic, and I would talk about positions 1 through 3 really in detail and how important they were. And then I think I quickly realized that positions 1 through 3 still don't really drive business goals. So you can be in positions 1 through 3 with a kind of a half relevant keyword. You're going to drive a lot of traffic, but it's not going to make an impact. So in a weird way, I think it's not as big of a change as we maybe like to think. I think digital visibility and like the large language model perspective of position 1, where we're coming up and being like recognized in the consideration set that Google or ChatGPT is offering, and then we have authority in that we're recommended product is maybe the new position 1. But regardless, position 1 as itself I think isn't as important as it is. How is it affecting our clients' business goals? Is it affecting signups or conversions or purchases? And
you guys are so reasonable with this.
Sometimes it was like, position 3 was fine because, we were in a really competitive area and in the old traditional SEO and we were generating more revenue for our clients' business. So I think, in the last 10 years, maybe I've focused less on position 1, and now it's been a little bit easier for our clients to kind of understand that that's not the target goal. The target goal is like, let's look at your bottom line on a quarterly or monthly basis and see what, how that affects it.
Yeah, I pretty much 100% agree and kind of want to take the same approach. It's all relative. And nowadays, with all of the ChatGPTs and AI summaries and AI search engines and whatnot, really, when we think about the original SEO, whatever, many years ago, 20 years ago now, more, it's kind of like, what makes you the most well-known? Where do you pop up? Do people know you more than your competition? Are you the brand, the website that users go to for answers? And it used to be that just kind of ranking number 1 in the blue links was basically accomplishing that. Nowadays, it's way more than that. It's all of the could be that you are coming up in AI responses or answers, or even if we take it even kind of a more, I wouldn't say philosophical approach, but tangential approach, because it is all relative, you could be ranking number 1, let's say, for your own brand name. That's pretty easy, right? So if you're most well-known brand and everybody, instead of searching best phone, just searches iPhone, Apple will come up, right? So that's kind of what it really means to me, to us as an agency nowadays, to make you rank number 1. It's more about that authority, about, do people know you better, more? Do you stand out somehow in some kind of applicable and meaningful way for your customers amongst all of your competitors? So maybe not quite the traditional number 1 ranking as in the section of the traditional SEO blue links section, whatever you want to call it, but more about what I just explained.
I love the term entity for it, right? Everyone's moving into the term entity. It seems to summarize a lot of what you said, Dmitrii. I think that was well said.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, also I feel contractually obligated as an SEO nerd to say, what does it mean to be on position 1 these days? It depends. Industry, of course, matters. We have a water remediation company that, they depend on calls. So if you're in position 1, page 1, the statistical chance of that person, searching in an emergency, finding that person and getting the call increases. If you're almost any other non-emergency type of business, that's where position 1 isn't what it used to be necessarily. Could it be? Sure, but it just depends.
Yeah, it's really all about connecting the user intent to business outcomes, kind of what Blake said earlier. At the end of the day, it's all about leads, calls, sales, whatever it is. So
I'm your customer, guys. All I've never known is getting ranked in the top 10 on Google.
Right.
That's all I've been sold for the last 2 decades. And now you're telling me it doesn't matter. And I am so sick of SEO people telling me it depends. Help me understand, what is the customer supposed to expect from marketing today? Like, how do we define success? I know it's from the KPIs, but there was a question recently on the podcast where we said, how long does it take your agency before you really come to a true alignment with your customer and you feel like you're like really making progress with them. And I know there's that 6 to 12 month stretch that people feel like that's where you see success. And it instantly came to, it takes 6 months before you feel like you really understand what's really going on with your customer. So you can't really tell them KPIs. You can't really tell them all these other things. The sales process seems to be way more complicated than it's ever been before. And I want to know if you have a simple analogy to share with the industry for how to communicate entity value over the traditional keyword rankings that we've used for decades.
I don't know that I have a great one, but I have talked to clients about the fact that SEO is a building block for AEO, GEO, EI, EIO, whatever we're calling it these days. And I think that's an important piece. And, you think about it from the perspective of, I have a website. I want to get people that website in front of people. When I first started SEO, it was about gaming the system. Now it's about making the site page one worthy, AI worthy, and that's a big difference. So while I can't argue with the time frame you're throwing out, I think there are certain industries you can get ranked a lot faster the more aggressive you are. And I don't know how aggressive other agencies are, but we're really pretty aggressive as far as that goes, but that's about building the blocks that are necessary to build other blocks and to get higher and more visibility across multiple platforms. It started with the blue links, and now it's gone on to multiple entities: Google Business Profile, YouTube, Reddit, AI, all of the above. So
I want to ask you a question real quick before I give Blake and Dmitrii a chance to take a stab at their analogy for.
Feel free to just tell me to shut the hell up.
No, I think where you're going is interesting. It's when you say you're aggressive, though, that's actually something that I'd love to dive into with you to understand how you go about being aggressive on this, because limited budget and SEO becoming way more broad than I think it used to be.
Yeah.
It feels like you now have to 5 times the budget to be successful with how aggressive you want to be. What is your company's approach here?
Well, and I'm always thinking about the balance sheet as well, but retention is, we recently realized that we were focusing more on the results and less on retention. And we've switched that paradigm and focused more on client retention while working on getting results. And it's like, oh, it's a head slapper right there. So when I say we're aggressive, like we build pages quickly, we do all the basic building blocks. I oftentimes compare SEO as putting a 10,000 piece puzzle together, and the company that puts the most pieces together wins a spot on page one. Well, being on page one, yeah, thank you. That's an original.
That's the analogy I needed right there.
There you go. Okay, I win.
No, let's come back to Dmitrii and Blake then. I actually want to use that analogy perspective. Like, it feels like that puzzle for SEOs for the last couple of decades was strictly on the website.
Correct.
How are you guys communicating that puzzle to customers today, being so much bigger?
Yeah, I think from our perspective is education is being like a primary building block with the new client. I think sometimes it makes it hard, not to go back a little bit too far, but we, as an industry, I think kind of created a monster where we give all these KPIs and all these areas and metrics that they should be focusing on, like impressions and traffic. And then when those things go down, potentially do like a core algorithm update or something, we're trying to educate our clients to be more focused on like business goals and the bottom line. Now, sometimes those go down too, and I think we have to accept when we've made errors or when we need to adjust. But if I'm kind of thinking about the puzzle analogy, I can't remember where I read it, but somebody smarter than me came up with the search everywhere optimization idea. And so I think what we've had to educate our clients on is not only just visibility or rankings or those areas, but also what's the perception either from the large language models perspective or even like before AI, like what was Reddit's perception on your product or service, or what was Yelp saying, or what was, what's in your Google local business profiles? What are your customers thinking? Because, part of that puzzle is no longer just like optimizing from a lexical like perspective of, keyword and pattern recognition. It is pulling in like what the customer journey is, who those personas are, and how they're evaluating your product or service. And then, they were going to Reddit before large language models. Now Reddit's just integrating that, like maybe customer feedback in a place that they're getting in the AI reviews or in AI mode. So I think what we're seeing is on our side, trying to educate clients is like, yeah, visibility is very important. We're very keen on making sure that your product and service is as visible as possible. We also have to factor in the perception. And if there's an error there, then, potentially Google or ChatGPT is not going to lead the user down to maybe as, that product or service being in their consideration set. They may be going to the two other brands that don't have maybe negative connotations with the product or service. So it's getting harder, but I think from a consumer's perspective, it's great because there's less, we could kind of outmarket or out SEO maybe places and get someone to come, directly from the blue link and make a decision right there. I think ChatGPT and Google Gemini made it harder for us to maybe out optimize a bad product or service, or make sure we get our reputation in line.
Contextual understanding too, right?
Yeah, I think everybody understands that. Even business folks who are not very well versed in marketing itself, that SEO is just one of the channels. And you mentioned, typical timeline given 6 to 12 months, depending on how difficult it is, could be even way longer. So, but it used to be that you kind of consider SEO just one of the channels to get leads, and just within that SEO, you would search for whatever service or product, and there would be actual 10 competitors in the sense of different companies offering the same product or service. And the higher you rank, the better. Well, nowadays it changed so much that even within the same 10 blue links, it is different types of channels, if you want to call them that. Kind of like, you can, like, I always, almost every time I talk to a potential client or existing clients, like, can we find shortcuts? Let's say you search for, again, whatever, AC repair near me. Is the first 3 results not even your competitor? Is it Reddit and YouTube and whatever else? Well, let's make you rank there, because especially in more keyword difficulty heavy topics, industries, and so on and so on and so on, like, it could take you years to get to beat those competitors that are not really even direct competitors. Like, can you compare yourself? Can you beat Reddit or sometimes Yelp? Oh boy, I hate Yelp, but unfortunately it becomes kind of like its own little sub channel, sub thing, right? Yeah. And so, well, okay, you know what? And especially when we work with smaller companies that are, if they don't get leads this week, they basically going to get out of business. So talking about SEO as a medium length channel or longer term channel, who cares if you're going to rank for something in 2 years if you don't get leads tomorrow and go out of business? So really, it's like, maybe we should think about this kind of like, as I think Blake mentioned, search everywhere. Even if it starts at Google, on Google rather, maybe people, whatever it is, like you, let's say the first result is Reddit, and then within Reddit comments and responses and whatnot, can we make you rank? Can we make you be first on the first result? Same thing with Yelp. Well, now maybe in this situation, if we know that it's going to take you to rank number 1 organically, truly organically, on pure SEO a year, well, maybe at least meanwhile, if the first 3 results are like Yelp and Reddit, maybe you should run ads or something so that you do come up number 1 on that Yelp or Reddit, or maybe let's do some kind of a brand authority building on Reddit. Maybe let's start introducing some expertise on that same thread that already ranks and shortcut it and get you pretty much number 1.
I'm gonna jump in here. There's an analogy. This is gonna be my analogy call because I'm loving the analogies today. There's an analogy I heard from someone that was talking about trying to build a bridge. I don't know if you guys have heard this one when it comes to SEO, but if you're trying to do a huge one and you're like 10 lanes across and you're crossing this huge river, you're just never going to get to the other side with any type of traffic. You have to create a lane that opens up to start building some type of flow. Otherwise, it's just a dead end forever. And those low-hanging fruits for companies. Sometimes if you're trying to rank in New York for lawyer and you don't have $1 million marketing budget, you should start a little smaller or somewhere else to find the right path to go about it. I want to back up, and I just want to know, had everyone heard the puzzle analogy before? I had actually never heard that for SEO, and I've been in here long enough I should have heard that.
Not in that exact, not in exact phrasing.
Actually, let me finish it, because just yesterday I was telling one of my clients who's an auto repair shop. I said, SEO is a 10,000 piece puzzle. Again, the company that puts the most pieces together, or the agency that puts the most together for you, wins a spot on page one. Ranking in AI is a 100,000 piece puzzle, and it doesn't have a picture. So that's where we're at right now, is trying to put that puzzle together for you.
Yeah, no one actually knows what's going on.
Right. I mean, because, I think all of us have a sense of.
I think you're like putting together a toddler, and the AI is like putting together a puzzle, and the toddler is the AI that's just like flipping pieces, deciding that that's not what they want.
Well, right. I mean, and I thought about that toddler analogy too. It's like explaining nuclear physics to a toddler sometimes. And, and I got to remember that for my clients who aren't in my head, or like Dmitrii said, they're not versed on this. Most of my clients don't give a rat's ass about learning about KPIs or visibility scores. They don't even read my reports from SEMrush. All they want is their phone to ring. And if their phone's ringing, they don't call me. As soon as their phone stops ringing, I hear from them.
Exactly.
I mean, we're changing some of that too. Our reporting is starting to be different. So,
and I think I would be interested to hear what everyone says about attribution, kind of the difficulties that they're facing with large language models now. But I think what I've been another analogy that is probably not a little weak right now, but we used to, talk about SEO casting a pretty wide net, and like that you'd have top funnel content, middle funnel content. Sometimes you kind of knew going in that this is probably not going to make a purchase decision, or we'll try to funnel users to make a purchase decision or generate a lead. But, we're trying to cast as many nets as possible to see what we come up with. And I think the exciting thing about large language models, even though it is a more complicated puzzle, is now we have like the personalization layer. So that net, I think, if done correctly, and, as we learn over the next couple of years how to better optimize for large language models, that net gets a lot smaller, and you're kind of fishing from a much smaller area, because then you can line up potentially your ideal customer profile or that persona with content that speaks specifically to them. So instead of going after kind of a broad keyword term, even if it is bottom of funnel, you can have these modifiers or intent signals to talk through what it means based on their demographic, their psychographic, plus your service and how that fits in. So the traffic really kind of is one of the education pieces that we're trying to work through, is like, it really doesn't matter, because we might, lose traffic by 10x, 100x. But if we're only focused on these ideal customer personas that, we've agreed with our clients or they've created for us, now we're hyper focused on presenting messaging to them that speaks to those users. The only issue still is that perception is still important, because we do have to, back up our claims. Otherwise, I think there is a potential to kind of poison the well a little bit if you're just trying to market without, kind of doing the research on the large language model perception or the overall online perception using like Reddit and Yelp and things like that.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. I think it sounds like we're overcomplicating it. The whole AI thing, and
SEO people never do that.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if you dug at all into how kind of like for real AI answers work. Like a couple of months ago, I was at a conference, and I had this presentation. Like in ChatGPT, I believe 3.1 or 3.2 before they switched to 4. Like if you go to the developer's code, it literally just goes to freaking Google or, their internal search engine, Sonic, and then basically it just searches all of Google's, and then it gives you like a sliding score from 0 to 100 of how much it literally Googled. So like 100 means they literally Googled whatever, or I guess ChatGPT is using Bing or whatever, right? Like it went to search engine, typed in the same phrase, and spit out the answers. And then the more philosophical and indirect queries they are, the more it starts doing processing. But for businesses, it usually doesn't matter. Like the super top of funnel, it sure maybe over very long term for certain size businesses where it does matter to go like super high top funnel. But for most businesses, it doesn't even matter. Like we just been not struggling, but like fighting with loss of traffic for one of our clients. And after we found out it was a lot, it was like 40%. It's like we looked at what they lost it for, and it's such a removed top of funnel in terms of search queries that it's like, okay, dude, we can recover this 40% and spend pretty much all of your budget and probably 10 times your budget that you have now. We can, or we can spend that same time or a fraction of that time and maybe work on your conversion rate on the website, maybe work on some platforms or pieces of content, your product pages, whatever it is that actually makes you money. Let's think about how it all affects business. And sometimes there is that ego for business owners, like, well, when I go to ChatGPT and ask it who's the best company around, I'm not coming up. Maybe in that specific example, it kind of does matter, but even that is reverse engineerable. Like you can see where it's being pulled from. Usually it's some kind of listicles, like, top, whatever, like what's the expertise.com type of stuff, right? Then Yelp, then again, just the normal Google results. It's like combine it all, and can we make, again, another shortcut I guess if you want to pay for your ego boost, sure. But it's like, I don't know, man. It just...
I agree on that aspect. I think there's an aspect of it where if we're thinking it from like a very grounded query perspective. Will Reynolds at Brighton, I don't know if anyone went to Brighton this last year, but his kind of opening meeting or his presentation was like talking about best SEO agencies, and it was like best SEO agencies of 2026 or 2025, and it was like, this random agency that he hadn't heard of, which he's a pretty well connected guy, was like, ranking up at the top, and it was basically saying we're the best agency, and then here's all these other reputable agencies that would be 2 through 10, and the point he was trying to make is one, that this kind of taking advantage, I think, of large language models is a little bit beneath SEOs, but also like, are you going to make a decision about who's the best, saying that I'm the best? You're going to generate traffic and citations, but you're not going to probably make an influence on somebody trying to get an agency unless they're just really not doing very much research. But I think
that's where the hackability comes in too, right? It's like, can you fake it? Can you like create, 1,000 different websites or 1,000 different articles on medium.com and such that basically says the same thing? Like that's where that hacking comes in too. Yeah,
because someone had said it again at Brighton, and I feel bad in not citing who it was, but they're like, there's three things about these large language models. They're like, they have recency bias, they're lazy, and so these listicles are like these really easy fast food meals for them to like push through and add to their information. But I will say, kind of going back to my earlier point about persona level, content, is if let's say someone is like, they want to know about like let's talk about like continuous glucose monitor. Someone's like type 1 or type 2 diabetes. They may want to know specifically if it like integrates with like a Garmin watch or an iPhone watch. And if there's not a lot of content that's very specific on that topic, I think there's a way to like, provide that contextual information. So that might not be the first turn within a ChatGPT or AI mode conversation or Gemini conversation, but it might be the third. And as people get more adept at using these large language models, that visibility I think is super important. But I agree. I think when like those initial search terms happen, and sometimes we're seeing what is being cited, it's not always like the most confidence. We don't have the most confidence in how these large language models are operating. So I agree that like they, are not working as maybe we're intended. We are overcomplicating it a bit, but I think if we, move towards what I've seen, I think in turn 2 and turn 3, plus what I think eventually Gemini and ChatGPT are working for, I think you're in pretty good shape, and you're giving information to the users that they're actually asking questions for.
I want to share an experience that I had, that I was looking for the pricing of the better, being accredited on the Better Business Bureau in a specific state. And I got to their website and I started clicking, and I fell through a marketing funnel, and it was asking me 10 questions on every page I clicked through. And I was like, I'm not here for this. I'm going to AI. I asked it the question, and it gave me a pretty good ballpark for how much it was going to cost me within seconds. And I'm like, marketing is changing today because the way that we've marketed for so long was grabbing all that attention and trying to hang on to it as long as possible. But it's just been reduced down to the answer engine of solve a problem for somebody. And it's just not so complicated in that sense. I want to go back to the puzzle really quickly too, because I want to hear your thoughts on how I was kind of perceiving it. Traditional SEO was the website. And with a very small budget, people would flip a puzzle piece at a time and try to reveal your picture to Google, and it would take a really long time. Assuming they had a massive budget, you threw it all in there, flipped over a puzzle, and you were probably ranking a lot quicker than someone else because they could see what you do. With AI today, it feels like that puzzle is still, SEO hasn't changed. That puzzle still has to be there for them to understand. But now they really understand the image of the puzzle at a different depth and what other people feel about your puzzle based on how that's being, like, the entities being seen across the internet, whether that's citations and like health grades for the medical industry and others that are adding credibility to it. Now it's just saying, hey, this is the puzzle, and we think it's actually the right puzzle. And so it's like people aren't necessarily trusting the website anymore. They're kind of trusting AI to give them the solution. I just want to hear, you guys have basically pitched that we're in the new phase, I think, of keyword stuffing, where now you're just putting out listicles and review style articles to try to push your company to the top. Can we trust the AI overviews that they're giving us better answers than the traditional Google model? Because Google just moved away from blue links or is planning on it. How do we feel about the quality of the content that's being delivered by the LLMs?
Horrible.
Well, I can give you numbers on that. I have SEMrush. I use that. I said all that already. Free plug. And I have that connected to Claude. And I will run an audit for, hey, Claude, do an audit on this project, yada, yada. It'll come back with, let's say, 10 suggestions on what to do. Pretty consistently, 4 out of 10 of those are complete garbage. So, I'm glad to get the 60%, but, without my experience where I go, no, or we've already done that, or blah, blah, blah. We just trusted AI to do that. It'd be like, no.
Yeah, I actually was going to mention that Koa, you mentioned you search for something for like a price of something, and it gave you some kind of
Better Business Bureau, like being accredited on the Better Business Bureau.
Right, but in our industry, we work with like very typical answer homeowners ask is like, what's the cost of, let's say, replace an AC or something like that, install an AC, or something similar. And if you look at AI answer, it's so wrong, it's kind of stupid, and you see where it takes it from. And it's actually fairly reputable websites, like they're like medium.com or homeadvisor.com. I think they have like guides, whatever.
Yeah.
Angie's List type stuff. But it's so wrong that actually that answer that AI provides is almost like it hurts the business, because it says
usually low.
It's dated. It's 5 years old, and inflation's rocked.
$4,000 to $8,000. Like, okay, dude, find me an AC system that costs between $4,000 to $8,000 for like a proper, not some kind of small window unit, whatever. And
doesn't that feel like an issue of poor SEO, or maybe different marketing strategies, that most companies don't want to list their pricing on the website because they wanted the and more so, like, if you have an opinion on that as a brand, as a business, nobody talks about it. So like, why wouldn't you? This is what, to me, SEO actually comes down to. It's having a freaking opinion and actually saying it out loud in as many places as possible. And that might be controversial, might be like, really branding means, by kind of almost definition, that you should be alienating certain people. Instead of like, oh yeah, whatever. Well, maybe do have, 50 different articles on different platforms that are actually, have like a stereotypical normal Google authority, whatever, like a domain authority or something like that, medium.com, forbes.com, whatever, where you do actually say about how horrible AI works with places like Home Advisor and Angie's List and why it's all wrong, and like back it up with your real data. This is another thing we noticed. When you use actual data from a business, especially if you have it like a big set enough, like, look, we pulled it up for you over last year, over, whatever,
5,000 installations, average was actually this in your zip code, in your city, in your state. And now, actually, when you have that controversial-ish opinion, AI picks it up because they understand that everybody else is saying the same thing, pulling from the same places. Like, it's so easy to see too. Like, just the wording of it is almost copy paste. So to me, SEO and all of this AI SEO and GEO, AIO, whatever, McDonald's had a farm, whatever you want to call it, becomes more about this brand building that actually have an opinion, not mediocre. And I forgot who said that recently. One of the Apple guys or whatever. It's like, over time, really, AI is going to suppress mediocrity in terms of everything, even as like a skill person level. If you're a mediocre writer, mediocre SEO, you're gonna die. And if you actually have something to say, this is when you're gonna thrive. Because by not default, but like how AI is actually built, it literally takes a mean average of everything and just gives you that mean average. So if you're right there, you're gonna get replaced. Everything else, on some kind of side of the scale, then you actually have a chance.
I think that's been the most frustrating thing for me, and I'm sure we all have a very similar LinkedIn feed, is like when you see someone like, hey, I've created 20,000 pages with Claude. It's like, yeah, but you created 20,000 pages of the exact same information. And, what we're trying to tell our clients is like that unique perspective, or any unique information, honestly, is the only thing that's going to battle through. And I think from our clients' perspective, we do have a decent amount of domain authority, working with health systems and universities. So when we've made updates to pages, we've actually seen some of that influence in the answer. I think it may be more difficult with that reputation, but yeah, if we're, if you're trying to find information and we're automating it completely instead of having a brand voice or unique perspective like Dmitrii mentioned, I think, eventually the list goals or whatever's working, they're going to catch on. We know, at least from Google's perspective in our history, we know when like gaming in the system catches on. So even if it's, a little bit longer term in terms of like, providing valuable information to users, ideally we then, the large language models reward us. But yeah, I think we're battling on two fronts. One is that the large language models in RAG is not as maybe sophisticated as we'd like to believe or that we'd like to see in a current state. But we're also battling quite a bit of laziness. It's definitely affecting our. I think that Angie's list and Home Advisor
the
models,
consumers, the agencies, and the bots that are all a little bit lazy going through this whole process.
Well, yeah, it goes back to the age-old question of again, when we all first started SEO, it was about how do we fake credibility. And that's what we're doing for brands. We're trying to, bad SEO people are trying to fake credibility for brands. And now, we're going from trying to go for the 10 blue links to really we're brand builders. That's essentially what we're trying to do now, build credibility for our client's brand. And how do you communicate that to the client itself? I mean, that's really the conversation where it has to start. Does your credibility have any brand? Does your brand have any credibility? Boy, that was dyslexia.
I have another analogy here. When you talk about like standing out, I was thinking about, and especially on LinkedIn, we are seeing from a flavor standpoint just vanilla straight down the whole shopping aisle. Like it's vanilla on the whole left side and vanilla on the whole right side. You finally see something that's like an actual flavor, and you're like, yeah, that's what I was looking for. And I feel like that is the disqualifying where you don't fit in and just trying not to be exactly like everything else that's being automated right now. It's funny how a typo, you're like, oh, so you were talking to me because you actually typed this. You're not a perfect AI bot that's drafted an entire perfect structure like you wrote a college essay, right?
Yeah. It's, over time, I don't know if, I think social media or like this content first approach almost, or like shoving it down people's throats, business owners' throats. You got to produce content. You got to be on social media. Just led to this, I got to post something. So I'll post some stupid stuff that nobody cares about. But when we think about in general, not in an SEO or business or like whatever, in general, who are people that we all admire or at least know for something. They could be known for something bad, or like not necessarily bad, criminal or whatever, but like something, just some kind of unique thing, whatever it is. And all of that started when they had some kind of a not necessarily controversial opinion, but opinion that nobody ever had. And that's what is worth talking about nowadays. That's what really SEO becomes. It's just like, I have an opinion, let me talk about it, not just on my website. Because coming back to that puzzle analogy, I think that it's not about building a puzzle as in each page of your website is piece of the puzzle, but like one piece of that puzzle is your website. Now all of the other pieces are everywhere else, and from again, whatever Yelps and YouTubes of the world. But if you like just producing content for sake of producing content, answering the questions that already have been answered, Blake, you mentioned whatever device that all right, yeah, so it's like somebody can ask a question of, does this device X work or pair with iPhone? That's a very simple answer. Is it worth producing SEO content? No. But if maybe kind of like really the same question of like, which devices pair with iPhone, and you can't create that listicle of, well, here's 10 devices and ours is the best. Or maybe actually in a nice, kind way, compare yourself to your competition. And here's even more scary question, I guess not answer. If you don't have anything to say how you're different from all of your competitors, should you even exist?
Yeah. Well, I think just so I'm not misunderstood here, is like part of it is, if we're looking at like a persona, let's say it's like an active individual that has type 1 diabetes, they may have certain requirements that they're not getting the answer very easily right now. So if you take all those requirements, and let's say that the device or costs more than like an alternative device, I think that's where you can be like that kind of courageous, unique perspective, which is like, yes, this does cost more, but here's what you get as a type 1 diabetic who's active, or if it's a system of its, we provide digital alerts when your blood sugar goes low or when it goes high. And like, if you're in high periods of activity, like what this device does. So in an area where maybe it was kind of like FAQs or broad product information, if we're providing really specific information towards a persona that's personalized, but fitting their intent and the questions they're asking, and maybe there's content gaps, or maybe there's content available, but it's kind of surface level. I think the combating that becomes like focusing on the really core unique selling points to that person, rather than just trying to have unique selling points for the old model of SEO, which is like, what's best CGM monitor for 2020?
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree. 100%.
Well, and to your point, Dmitrii, when we deal with a lot of service-based businesses, and I ask that question on the initial interview with the client, and I say, why should I use you over somebody else, over this garage door company or whatever? And you would be amazed, probably you wouldn't, but the normal person would be amazed at how many stares I get like a cow at a passing train. I'm like, what? I don't know what makes me different. I've been doing this all my life. Okay, that helps. Right. Right. Yeah, but what makes you different than all the other people that have been doing all that? And they struggle with that. I mean, they really do in certain types of businesses. So that's not as an easy question for them to answer. So then it falls to us to kind of make something up for them that makes them unique. And that's not always a safe place,
When we have these kind of like a preliminary conversations with potential prospects now, if after I kind of explain all that, and they do tend to have something at least, then we do have that like a discovery conversation, usually in person, where like half the team comes out to their location, all that stuff. Like recently we started saying, we come in as therapists, but you also will need probably therapy after, because you're going to be crying into a pillow for half the day. And that's so true in services industry and like home services. It's so true, because they all say the same thing: affordable pricing, whatever, license, honest work, license tax, the same thing. everybody says the same thing, and it just mediocrity. Okay,
They're unique, just like everybody else.
yeah, exactly.
And we've been struggling with this, but I think what we're identifying is when we're pulling in information from citations or things like Reddit and YouTube, and I think like, the communities and forums information on the search and results page, we're getting information from that is not always positive of like quality raters from real customers. And I think sometimes like that's part of the education process for us is like, hey, I think we can help you with digital visibility, but what we can't help you with is a bad product or service, like a significantly bad product or service that doesn't really have unique redeeming qualities. But I think there is something within this industry where we're learning about like valuable information that probably should be sent on to a product management team at some point. But it also becomes a little bit of a difficulty where our clients aren't approaching us for those opinions, but those conversations do need to be had, because I think you can, like I think said earlier, but kind of poison the well. If you're going to optimize and get a bunch of visibility for a product or service that's going to be synthesized in the answer, that's probably not going to be very good for your business either. So
for sure. I mean, we've turned down clients for SEO because they've had crap websites, and then we've offered to build the websites. But I want to be in the next conversation you have, Blake, with a client where you sit in with them and say, your brand sucks.
Oh, we just fired the client literally 2 weeks ago, because if you Google their brand name and go to like Reddit, like one of the first results is like scammers don't use, and you start reading, and it's not just like a one comment. Like there was a original post from a couple of years ago. The more you start reading, it's like, okay, this is pretty bad. And then we did a sentiment analysis through all of their reviews and kind of just over the internet. It's like, look, man, what you're asking me to do is to basically spread the word that you're garbage. Literally.
100%.
It's like, you know what? I can't do that to the world type of thing.
Ethical marketing. I appreciate that.
Yeah. The last client I fired was for a total different reason. He was just a disruptive.
Yeah. And funnily enough, I don't know if you ever heard, either of you have seen or heard, one of my favorite campaigns. It's like not a SEO campaign, it's more like a marketing campaign, pure marketing campaign by a skiing resort in Utah called Snowbird. If you haven't, I think it was Snowbird. If you haven't looked,
it's Snowbird. I'm in Utah.
Look it up. But their marketing campaign was they took their 1-star reviews and turned it upside down. So it's like actual reviews. It was like too difficult over terrain, 1 star. Or it's like, I thought it would be easy for beginners, 1 star. Very clear audience and persona targeting by exclusion, right? Like one of my favorite things. So like when we do this type of analysis, like a sentiment analysis, or even what we recommend now when I talk to anybody is like, go to ChatGPT and type in, what am I, like the brand, what my brand X known for, in parentheses, exclude my own website, right? Very different picture. Because when you don't say that, exclude my own website, it's like all nice and fluffy. You add that, it becomes very, very different. It either becomes very mundane. Oh yeah,
So we're just about out of time. So I want to wrap up with my thoughts on this as well. Specifically in that I think Google really does. I want to believe this. They don't care about you, but they do care about the users. They really want to provide the best solution to the people that are searching for an answer. Because that's what drives ad revenue. That's what drives money for them, is people using their platform. I genuinely believe that AI is trying to provide the best answers because, again, it's all about driving users to their platforms. And that's what I'm excited about. Dmitrii, even you searching and seeing that, like, hey, this is maybe not the best brand, and making that determination yourself is what LLMs are essentially trying to do. And I think we're at an interesting situation in the marketing world where a crappy company can't hide behind that. It's made it visible to everyone. So users are starting to filter out maybe the contractor that's charged 3 times more for their service than they have the right to. Now it's like, hey, they have awful reviews. They don't want to tell you their price. You'll get a quote. It's really high based on these reviews we've seen. And I feel like that is where the adoption of LLMs is going to be really, really fascinating, and why it's kind of forced Google to make this change away from the traditional blue links. But ultimately, the marketing job has stayed the same of let's explain why we're the best solution for these things. And now it's just getting tested harder than it ever has before. And I think it's great for the whole industry. So I'm excited. I appreciate that you three joined me in this conversation. I wish we could keep going. I told you we'd stick true to an hour, but we probably could have gone 2 hours today and how this conversation was going. But I really want to thank you guys for being guests of SEO On Air. I'm going to put you as guests. I'd love to have you back on in the future, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us, guys.